you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
I'm trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
This easy feeling surrounds you. Baby, get by a minute into force. Oh, I didn't notice it's all getting full. But only when got me back, chest, I done got me. I didn't think it ever come to a stop.
Well, good morning and welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarijuana. I've got my good friend and fellow advocate from Pace Radio, Al Graham, with me this morning. I'm not even sure where to start with Al because he goes back so many, years with, first of all, writing for Treating Yourself magazine, and then, I'm with Pace, which is people advocating for medical cannabis, as well as receiving the first Michelle Rainey Award. So I'd like to welcome Al to the show. Welcome, Al.
Hi, Tamara. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right. Last couple of weeks I've been dealing with a minor Crohn's flare-up, but think I've got her all settled down now.
Oh, that's great.
And thank you for having me on.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on. And you've hosted me quite a few times on the Pace Radio show. Often you don't get the chance to sit on the other side of the mic and get the questions asked to what you're actually doing rather than asking everybody what they're doing.
Yes, this is different for sure. But hey, it's all about getting the education and information and stuff out there. So this is all part of it.
Absolutely.
Sharing one story can make a difference in so many other people's lives. And, we've been able to share many stories. So now it's maybe my turn.
Well, that's exactly it. Like, we all have our own stories, and I don't know if many people, when I first met you in Toronto back at the Treating Yourself magazine, I was pretty unfamiliar as to who you were and where you kind of fit into the whole realm of things. And, just speaking with you then, and then getting to know you over the last 10 years, pretty much, you really, see where people and within their local areas, right? Mm. So where exactly you're in Ontario, but what part do you kind of hail out of in Ontario?
I'm in the Peterborough, Belleville area, which would be, I would call the southeastern area.
Right. And you guys have quite a bit of advocacy and activism going on down there. I know. Yeah. There's.
Yes, we do. In Peterborough, Wayne Matheson of Canada Days, he runs the 420 from there, as well as Peterborough Cannabis Day. So right. I get involved with that and go there and promote cannabis education, which is something that, as you said, I've been involved in this for years, and that's what it's all been about for me, is to talk to the grassroots people and educate them. There's lots of people who are out there that are fighting with the governments and stuff, and I look at it that if you can educate the people down on the ground, they'll eventually get the politicians to change their mind.
Absolutely. Well, it's the patients that we actually have to get to talk to, the people that do change legislation, right? And if it wasn't for right back from the very get-go. Now, you first started writing for Treating Yourself magazine. What year was that in?
That would be back in 2007. It was following I was invited to do a help in a booth at the International Home and Garden Show that was held in Toronto. A friend of mine, Diane Bruce, invited me to join her and Marco and others in the booth. And as people were going through the home show, amongst all the furniture and stuff, there we were. We had a cannabis booth, and we were giving out free magazines. And we were sharing our stories and telling people how cannabis improved our lives. And it just snowballed from there. Marco asked me if I could write about my experience, because I had written actually for a couple of articles for an off-road magazine because I was involved in off-roading before I got sick. And so he asked me if I could write an article about that, and I did, and it just grew from there. I ended up going around wherever I went to an event, wherever Treating Yourself was at, whether it was at a National Women's Show, National Home in Canada Bloom Show, a wellness show, any type of event. I ended up writing about them and sharing those experiences and letting people know that what others are doing in order to educate the public.
Absolutely. And you suffer from Crohn's disease, which is similar to my colitis, but Crohn's can really put you back a little farther sometimes than colitis does. Like, it can really hold you back. So meeting Michelle probably was, a huge, almost like not a vindication, but like meeting somebody with the same affliction that was using cannabis as medicine, and with her, right? So you want to talk a little bit about your time with Michelle?
With Michelle, Michelle was also involved with Treating Yourself magazine, and she was at the 2010 Expo as well. When it comes with Michelle, I attended Marco had held a cannabis awareness forum at the Delta Chelsea in downtown Toronto. And it had Michelle, as well as had lawyers and other advocates and people involved in social justice where they were speaking. And I sat there and I watched Michelle speak about her medical condition and dealing with Crohn's and what she had gone through. And sitting there listening to her, I thought to myself, I'm a kind of guy who doesn't speak publicly all the time. And it's not something that was my forte or anything like that. And I thought, geez, if Michelle can get up there and share her story about what she's gone through to educate people, then I think I can do the same thing. And it was something that I ended up doing. It wasn't a plan or nothing, but it was something that I was able to do publicly for 5 years by going around. And what I did was host cannabis educational documentaries in cafes between Peterborough and Belleville for 5 years. And I would talk to people beforehand about my experiences with cannabis. And then I would show the documentary. And then we get into a big conversation afterwards. Several times during these shows, I would have people that came into the cafe. They may not have realized what I was going to do. I had informed them. And they say, well, we probably won't stay, or maybe we'll stay for a bit. And then they ended up staying for the whole show, and they'd be part of the conversation.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, really, is just getting out and speaking to people. And that's, I think, where like the grassroots movement kind of started. Same, within Lethbridge too, where we started as well. It started with global marijuana marches, as well as it was, watching a news program and seeing, Keith Fagan and Debbie Fagan fighting for Grant Krieger's rights in Calgary at that point in time, where they had granted to jail, right? And he was, wanting his medical marijuana, and they refused to give it to him. And he had gone in walking and was basically coming out of that institution in a wheelchair. So, hence why, cannabis has been so helpful to so many of us for so many years, that it's kind of like once you start using medical cannabis or cannabis in general, you can't but pass that information on. Right?
Exactly. Like I've got, as we mentioned, I have Crohn's disease. When I originally got this back in 2003 when they diagnosed me, I spent 2 weeks in the hospital. I was on a morphine drip while I was in there. When I left, it was bad. Like, they had a pad underneath me because I was just bleeding everywhere, and they ended up on the morphine drip. And then when I left the hospital, they gave me a prescription for morphine pills. 3 years later, because of cannabis, I returned those pills to the pharmacy with only 6 missing. And because I used my cannabis through that, I felt I had to tell everybody, and that's where all the sharing your stories, whether it was at those home shows or when I was doing the documentary movies,
just by passing on the information to people that needed the information. And yes. Look at the numbers that have changed over the last 10 years. Like, since, yourself that you got started, like, see how many that you've helped, like, even within Belleville and Peterborough. Like, when I went out to Toronto too, like, that's where I was first, introduced to was Peterborough, right? And that the nicest part about it is that Jen Collette was there, right? And she had her little massage, therapy sessions and stuff going, and people were learning and getting to know her. And then there was, other things going on in Peterborough with the 420s and everything else, which was a stem off from Toronto, because Toronto really is a hub, which is so disheartening about the fact that, the police out there want to keep busting, the
Busting
dispensary.
people. Talking about the way things have grown, I think a good example around here of that would be when I got started, I attended the only 420 rally that was around the area. That was the one in Niagara Falls. There was
Right.
only one at that time. And geez, there a couple of years ago, there had to be like 30 of them, down here, because they just grew in popularity, and more people saw. When you see somebody else speaking out, or you see somebody else doing something like that, this is on the civil disobedience end of all, as far as these rallies, it grows. It gets bigger and bigger. Look at the rallies in Toronto, same thing. Big once they move to there, now they're too big for the young and Dundas. You got to find somewhere else to go.
Right. Well, exactly. Same with Lethbridge. You start with 30 people. By the third year, we're at 150 people, and and really that for the population, you don't think that's great, but for the area, you're thinking, that's fabulous to have even that many people come out. And over the years, how many our community has grown. Back. When you first got started, there was, a very small number of patients in your area. Now, even it seems like wherever I even go, it's like, oh, well, yes, I consume cannabis for medical purposes. And I have people asking me questions everywhere I go, which makes it so that more and more people mainstream are actually looking at cannabis for medicine, looking at the fact that pharmaceuticals are so bad for you. Well, I wouldn't say bad for you, but bad for some people. Some people have no tolerance for pharmaceuticals at all, right?
Yes. When it comes to the public education, like I mentioned, those shows, I'm involved every weekend at a local flea market. And you talk about people and don't want to use, the opiates and the other medications, and they're getting tired of those. And we have people come in on the weekends that tell us all that stuff. They're fed up with the opiate drugs. They know about the addiction issues. They see it's a big thing all the way across North America. And they want to do something else instead. So they come to the booth and they talk to us, and we'll help them any way that we can, as far as directing them to a place where they can get a doctor's signature, or even if we know of places where we're near Shannonville, which is an Indian reserve, and they have a system down there that patients can go down and get access to their medicine. So if we can direct them that way, then that's it's all about helping them.
And you're in this flea market, right? Which is a mainstream flea market out there, right?
Correct. Yeah. We're amongst all the antiques and the collector items and the dust collectors and that. Yeah, it's the hidden chest flea market here in Campbellford.
And you do that. How long you been doing that for now?
Wayne got the booth a year ago. And
right.
We've been in there. Yeah, we've been in there for a year. I go down every Saturday, spend the day down there, talk to people about the cannabis issue.
And is this not just a seasonal thing? This is all year round, right?
Correct. Yeah, all year round. We're doing it for a year. We've got Wayne's got himself a large booth down there. It's like 3 or 4 regular booths all together. We're not the largest booth, but we were the largest booth in there at one time. And quite often people believe they come to us just, to ask us a question about the flea market or whatever. We're not, it's as if we're an information location, but we stick out. People come and talk to us.
That's good. But just like I said, for it to be in a mainstream, year-round flea market in in Ontario, with of course there's no distribution, but just education. That's one thing that they can't stop us from doing, right? They might be able to try and stop us from having private distribution centers, but they can't stop us from educating anybody because there's nothing illegal about that, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's all as far as the pace end in the booth. What we do is we give away free cannabis educational information. That's in with Treating Yourself magazine. Yes, Treating Yourself hasn't been published since 2013 after issue 42 was printed, but they're still available. I've got a whole whack of them here. And we're giving them away every weekend down at the market. And we've got that Cannabis Digest. I used to be a writer for TED, So I still get access every once in a while. They'll send me a bundle of magazines or of newspapers, and we'll have them in there. Grassroots Advocates, which is something that I put together for PACE, with information and education in there for sharing. And what else we got in there?
I think more of our groups actually within our community are getting into the mainstream, even with MUM.
Yes.
To the wellness expos and having the hemp fest that was in Calgary. I see that they're also having another hemp fest in Edmonton. For Alberta, that's phenomenal, right? Like,
yeah,
I can't believe that. Like, since I've left Alberta, how much has really opened up out in Alberta, which is terrific. I'm really happy to see that there's so much going on out there. But with the mainstream, like I said, you being a forefront for that, really, by being that mainstream, area.
See, locally here, because I am in a small town, municipality with a bunch of smaller towns together, because I was so public, not only like I was doing the documentaries, but because I was also appearing in the newspaper. I was writing articles to being part of feature articles. So we did a cannabis and yoga session. We had a 2-page spread on cannabis and yoga. They came and took the local newspaper came and took pictures of us. They had articles in there about me doing these movies. More recently, we've been on the front page of our local newspaper over Canada Days. Wayne wanting to open a store here in town. We're at the flea market for a year, but he's also expanding into a business downtown. So it's we're getting in the front page. There was actually at one point there when the Ontario government came out with letting us know we could consume our medication publicly. They came and talked to me and get on the front page. So yeah, getting out in the public, it helps to me not only educate people, but it also helps with the normalization of it.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we have to start walking away from the stigma, is actually streaming and talking to so many people. I know even patients that come to me, a lot of them are seniors, but a lot of them are, I'm finding 40 plus, but there's also, the younger, crowds as too. And we were talking prior about the dabbing issue, right? And not an issue, but the dabbing and how I don't dab because of the fact that I don't like to cough, and how, a lot of, people find that dabbing is more effective for their afflictions, whether they want high CBDs or high THC. And, I had a discussion yesterday or this morning too, as well as, whether CBDs are better or THC. I'm finding a lot of the breeders are breeding the CBD into and taking the THC out. The LPs are, offering higher CBDs than they are THC. And, that's been a long time discussion, I think, for, with the new licensed producer systems and what the government's trying to get at. Like, I'm not really sure, like, US, hype about high THC euphoria, where it's all coming from, but these are discussions that I know that are coming forward, and, questions that need to be answered to the patients, so that I need to educate myself some more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People are asking these questions. So where are you finding, we have to kind of lead into educating ourselves better on what the licensed producers are doing. So that being said, we're going to head to a break here, and we will talk a little more about the licensed producers when we come back. I'd like to thank some of my sponsors, 12 High Chicks Magazine, who have just announced Mum Cup for February, and we'll talk a little more about that later on in the show as well. And we're off to a break. We'll talk a little more about that later on in the show.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Oh yes, me roll it. Me not care what you say, strictly herb it and me brain. Yes, me love the cannabis, yeah. Me never send Serakia. Me always have Mary's line. Oh yes, me roll it. Me not care what you say, strictly herb it and me brain. Roll up your ganja spray. Roll up your ganja spray. So you can pass me the whistle. Pass me the whistle. something for yourself. Smoke ganja hard. You got with the Lord. Oh yes, me roll it. Me not care what you say, strictly herb it and me brain. Yes, me love me cannabis, yeah. Me name a Senserakia. Me always have Mary's now. Oh yes, me roll it. Me not care what you say, strictly herb it and me brain. Roll up your ganja split. Roll up your ganja split. Alright. You never see me beg you feel no like that. No rolling paper, no ganja. Me young things always there. In a me backyard, me grow a big cali tree. As soon she a go ready, me a go smoke and nice and steady. So now the herbs come around. Me a fair rising in the morning, me a go pick up from the ground. That's my where this came from. Sensera coffee, me name and me marijuana off the floral. Oh yes, me roll it. Me not care what you say, strictly herb it and me brain. Yes, me love me cannabis, yeah. Me name a Senserakia. Me always have Mary's now. Oh yes, me roll it. Me not care what you say, strictly herb it and me brain. Roll up your ganja split. I know. Roll up your ganja split. Herb is the healing of the nation, yes. I got to smoke my ganja weed, yes. And then now smoke the seed. Neither figure kill the breed. No, no. Roll up this split now. Oh, me love me sensamina. So you must get up with marijuana. Whoa, 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 yeah. Roll up your ganja split. Roll up your ganja split. Ganja split. Roll up your ganja weed. Yeah, yeah. Roll up your ganja split. Smoke ganja till your head red. Roll up your ganja split. I grade going to a grave. Roll up your ganja split. Yeah, man. Sense rock and Silver Walker in the studio live and everything. No. From Jam Rock and Silver Walker and the big man is up there. Wow.
Following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CTCP Society, or search Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society, or search.
All right, and we're back, and the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society is the group that I'm affiliated with, and I'd like to thank Ross and Deb and Linda for all their hard work that they're putting out in Ontario. And Al, we're back. So we were talking about the whole hype about, I guess, dabs and whether you prefer or I prefer, or, you know, what
And the
education.
LPs.
Yeah, and the LPs and the CBDs. So to educate, like, you know, which is part of what we are trying to do with all the advocacy that we do, is trying to get the proper information out to the patients and hear their stories as to what they're using their cannabis for. So for example, for Crohn's and for my colitis, I find that oral vaping helps me a lot. A lot of cannabis edibles I can't eat due to the milk, butter, sugar, that kind of stuff. What about you? What kind of information with your Crohn's would you pass on as, you know, something?
What I would let them know is I was the same as you. I had problems with edibles. Sure, I could have a cookie, but I couldn't have like 2 or 3 cookies. And it wasn't because of the effect of, being too high or anything like that. It was the effect that it had on my system, on my bowels. And the baked goods, they're not the best things for somebody with Crohn's disease. And I did have some issues with them. So I ended up vaporizing and smoking is what I did. And, now things are changing along. Now, back when I had my major flare up in 03, people weren't doing things like capsules or anything like that. So I'm not sure how a capsule would actually, it would probably be better with the person with Crohn's versus when I had to do it with the edible end of it all. But vaporizing was a big help with me when it came especially to the pain. I found for myself that vaporizing was more of a body effect. And so that's what I would end up doing, was more along the line of vaporizing.
Right. And I've tried the capsules too, and I find that because they're mixed with a coconut oil, that the coconut oil is hard on my system too. Like, olive oil, like anything that's kind of like an oil for my...
It's an oil. Yes.
Yeah.
And it can be a problem. And who knows? More recently I have been doing the cannabis infused coconut oil in the capsules, but also more recently, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going through a flare up. So, was that the thing that maybe was the trigger for my flare up?
Well, and that's the thing with, like I said, with the stability of what we're, sometimes making ourselves, right? Most of us make our own, well, I wouldn't say most of us, some of us make our own medicine. And that's because we educate ourselves to do so. But a lot of people are buying medicine from dispensaries, and that's not a bad thing that they're able to be offered within the dispensary. Now, like the CBD capsules or the high THC capsule or 1-to-1, or like I said, I found that it's not the RSO per se that's caused the issue, like you said, flare up for me as well, but it would be the infused coconut oil or something like. That's why I started making the hard candy, just because of the simple fact that it was hard candy. There's nothing else in it besides the basic tincture, sugar, whatever, right? But then again, if you're having patients that have cancer issues or other issues, you don't want to be feeding them the high levels of sugar if they've had chemotherapy, right? So hence, like I tell a lot of people when I'm talking to them, like, I'm not a doctor. Like, I've got no medical training at all. I am just going off the self-education that I've read through, all the books and information. And this, of course, speaking with other advocates as well. You learn so much by speaking to other patients because of the fact that testimonially we've taken over our own health. So we're doing our own thing, right?
Yeah, you become self-educated on this. And I know for myself, when I was doing those documentaries, I covered 4 different topics, and one of them was on the science of cannabis. So seeing these movies, these documentaries, these researchers talking over and over again about the medicinal benefits, but self-educated myself, just like that, Right,
absolutely. And there's so many more studies actually coming out of Israel now, that there was 5 years ago. And that's the thing, like in the last 5 years, even, like how many other, but of course they're not coming out of the Canadian government. Like there are no, studies are popping up freely, on our for our government, but out of Israel and the States that now have become legalized, right? Or regulated, I guess. If I don't think there's anything legal about any of the programs that they've put forward, and for any of when you call legalization, right? Because it seems like even in the States, there's something attached to it that's criminality.
Yeah, it is. And like I know, like when it comes to research here in Canada, a lot of it and anything in the past was all done through had to be approved through the government. I think the last one was Dr. Mark Ware's study that he did on 21 patients smoking to see how it relieved pain. But I believe some of the LPs now are involved in doing the research and stuff, things such as arthritis and Alzheimer's. Yeah.
Stuff have come out, and been supportive of these studies, which, ultimately have to be done. I know that there are some other people in our community that are looking for, patients to do certain studies for their product, so they can see how their product affects other people as well, right? And I mean, testimonially wise, there's so many of us, like thousands of us, that can say, yes, cannabis benefits for this.
I think a big thing is to people who get over hurdles that don't be expected. A patient that can show that they had skin cancer or any cancer and was able to have it removed through cannabis therapies. Just watching the children, being able to see these kids dealing with the oils and that, and their seizures, and them getting their lives back together again. If people can't see that it's a medicine and shows through the children's use, and they think it's just harming them, it's just crazy. It's so obvious. It's so obvious.
Like children that were given death sentences, pretty much, basically sent home with stunts in their head and said, "See you later." There's nothing more that we do for her. And then 8 years later, here she is walking around, like, not speaking verbally or standing alone, but absolutely having some quality of life. And that's the thing. Like, where do you dispute that? Yep. Now back to the LP, like we're discussing kind of before too, where you've got the LPs that are pushing all these high CBD strains. Right. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and I'm not going to get into the whole dispute or argument over what's best for everybody, because as an individual, we all know that medication, no matter what it is, affects everybody differently, right?
It sure does.
But here's my question. Why is THC becoming such an oddity when we all know that that's, something that we all need? Like,
what I'm finding out, okay, through the public education, being these people at especially more recently down at the flea market there with Wayne, people are telling us that they're looking to get better, but they don't want to get stoned. They don't want to be high. I still want to be able to function. For us to be able to tell them about those options, okay, of a low CB or a low THC and a high CBD, they're happy, to know that is available for them to have. But yet, if somebody still likes the effect of the THC and CBD and wants some CBD, I'm not sure what all the LPs have to offer, but I'm sure they would have stuff with a little bit higher THC and some CBD in it as well.
Well, I know that there's a lot of research being done too with the different levels of CBHs, the tetrachloride difference with terpenes and everything else that's becoming a real science when it comes to cannabis, right? Whereas before it was just throw it in a bag, roll it in a joint, and smoke it.
Oh yeah, and people didn't care what it was at one time.
Right.
As far as and then I've seen over the years how people are more they're looking into the name of the strains in order for identification purposes.
Well, exactly. Even the recreational, now when you're walking into, say, said pot stores that don't ask for licensing anymore, they've got everything lined up, with the levels of THC and CBD. They've got the names and everything's all sparkly and beautiful, and that's terrific because that's how far we've actually come with educating everybody with because the licensed producers ultimately have had to and I'm not giving them any kudos. Me, Al, I'm a boycott. But I mean, when you really sit back and think about how much education they've had to, a businessman that never seen a cannabis plant before, now he's running a licensed production site. How much education have they had to go through to get to where they are? Or my other question is, have they? Right? I've never spoken to anybody besides Medigene way back, and I don't think they ever did get their licensing for licensed production.
They wrote a story about you.
Pardon me?
They wrote a story about you.
Yeah.
The patient story. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah. I don't know I think they just faded away, I guess.
Exactly.
As far as Medigene, yeah.
They just kind of faded away. Exactly.
There's I would say there's LPs that are probably doing some good things, and there's some LPs that probably maybe shouldn't be there. Through my cannabis times, I've met a lot of people within the Toronto community. And some of those people who are great people, we worked the trenches together, are now involved with the LP. So whether they're trying to make change from inside, I don't know. But I see goods and bads in the LPs, and I think those type of people who were once standing beside me in a booth would make things better for some people. So.
Well, I'm hoping that that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Community that's actually going in there and saying, okay, well, not the way things are going. But then you also have what Metrum, was it Metrum that just recalled for pesticides?
They had some polyethylene. There was something to do with it was used as an ingredient within some wash that they used on their leaves.
Right, absolutely.
So, recalled.
But again, that's one out of how many 35 that have got a recall again, and claiming huge numbers of patients.
See, I know. Back in the MMAR, there was times where I was helping a lot of people get licensed and things. And what I found was a lot of people were also looking for designated growers, and they didn't know anybody. They didn't know anybody who'd grow. And then, even you connect some people, even if they were friends in the beginning, they would end up fighting in the end. So now with the LPs, that gives those people a choice. And
well, it's exactly.
They want to get their access to medicine, and I want to help them get access to medicine. Yeah. If they can grow on their own, by all means, I'll direct them to growing.
Yeah, absolutely. But
if they can't,
the same mindset though as they were with the MMAR, right? Like offering out patients at 20% their grow. When people, let's face it here, this designated growing system isn't out for people to get rich off of either.
No.
Help the patient. And that's where I think the breakdown was with the MMAR to begin with. It's overgrowing, patients diverting, or designated growers perverting. And there's absolutely no evidence that they were either, whether they were or they weren't. I really don't have, much to say as an opinion on that either. But the fact of the matter is when they're diverting whole crops that belong to patients and the patients were getting nothing.
Just like there was talk about the MMR diversions, there's also talk of diversions from LPs as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that's what another thing you're hearing now too is but they're supposed to be so regulated that how would that be happening, right? Yeah. So and that's the government again. And you can't even point fingers at people per se, or prohibition's all been based on a government agency that's pushing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we among fighting and drama that goes on between, even, with us saying, okay, the LPs stink and this and that. Ultimately, the government's put us all there, right, with prohibition and making so that we can't change anything because they're not changing anything, right?
Yeah, it's right now, it is a bit of because of legalization and medical, there's so much, people are getting confused in a lot of stuff.
Well, you were just at Karma Cup too, last weekend as well. You were down at Karma Cup. And what was the feel down there? I'm hearing conflicted, not even conflicted. Overall, I heard nothing but great things about the whole experience. But we're leaning recreational. Was it leaning more medical? Where's the lines being drawn? Because before, treating yourself was basically medical. We all knew that we were going because we were patients, and recreational was something that was there. We all knew it was. We all and quality of life, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there should be a line drawn. Medical, we all consume cannabis for our own specific reasons. But what was
the Karma Cup? I had a fantastic time while I was down there. We did a live broadcast, the 420 Roadshow broadcast. It was myself and Al Rapp from Lifestyle Radio and the 420 radio show, as well as Kim Cooper, who's one of my joint hosts. Three of us, we walked around the cup, and we had a great time. Was it recreational? Was it medical? I'd say it was mixed.
Which it should be. I think
I would say it was festive. There was some music going in the background. People were talking. I had, because we were portable doing the live show. The odd time my cords got caught on people because it was bumper to bumper, especially on Saturday, and it was cool. It was windy, a little bit windy and cool. As far as temperature wise, it was 9 degrees. But it didn't stop anybody from going. We waited 45 minutes to get in. We waited in line. And when we got to the booth, I looked back and the lineup was just as long or longer than when we got in.
That's excellent.
And Tracy Curley was on our show on Wednesday. Right. Debbie had her on. She told us during the show that Sunday morning, the first hour, they had 650 people through the door.
That's phenomenal.
Saturday would have been a lot larger as far as that first hour. I never asked her how many they had in total, but it was great.
People were cannabis in downtown Toronto. You know what I mean?
Yeah, It was in a parking. It was, it was like the Wednesday. The municipality, the city jumped all over them to shut them down. Within 48 hours, it had a new place. It was all go. It was all set to go. And during the show, Tracy informed us. She thanked Mark Emery for that.
Nice.
Because you mentioned about the people that are selling cannabis for 19 over the recreational end. Well, Mark has a cannabis culture store like almost across the street from this parking lot on Church Street, and he opened his doors to allow people to come in, and we got to see the setup in there, and
actually, I give kudos to them. Like, really, in reality, like if you're 19 years or older, and I've said this for the last 5 years too, the doctors are the gateway, right? If you need medical cannabis, all the power, but a doctor shouldn't be one stopping you from using it. If you use cannabis for whatever reason you use it for, why should a doctor be holding that carrot? You know what I'm saying? And why should we have to have a tag around our neck to say, it's okay for you, you're not going to be persecuted, but buddy over there is going to get persecuted and, have a criminal record. And even with medical license, hello, I've got a criminal record for cannabis.
Yes,
so,
yes.
You know what I mean? Like, where do you draw the line with, with regulation and the criminality? It should never have been a crime. That's a whole different argument, I guess. But
it is. And what I was going to get to about Mark's place was that you had mentioned about we had talked briefly about people identification by strain names. Now that's important to people. There they were. They had strains, jars, samples, some buds in it, so people could take a look. And there was information, the names, the strains, costs, and stuff like that.
Right, I think that's the thing. One problem I've got with a licensed producer is that they don't really give you that option. Like they give you a write up about what you've got. I guess I'm one of those feel, smell, taste. Okay, I'll take it kind of a girl.
Yeah.
And then you go to the licensed producer and you got to read up. Well, this has got so much THC. To be honest, I've never looked at one of their pages because I don't have a need to shop for an LP. I guess I should educate myself a little more. I'm not. Sure. Like a menu that they've got like dispensaries online, where you can actually see it. Even in an online dispensary, you're still looking at a picture of a bud. Like,
right. Like, I don't know what all the strains are that are offered to, by all the companies. And I haven't been to every company website, but when the system did get going and, I did go through some of their sites because of the fact that I'm dealing with people who come to me who I don't even know. They'll call me, they look up my number in the phone book or whatever. And, they just want access to cannabis. They can't grow it physically. They don't have a spot to grow it. And they want to be legal. Because I'll ask them that. Do you want to go legal or do you want to go illegal? Do you want to go to a compassion center? And, I get quite a few that say that they want to be legal.
Right. And I understand that when you have children and other things going on in your life, you have that for purpose, right? Yeah. But in reality, like, it's just, I guess it's putting people in the position where they're asking questions that some of us don't have the answers for.
Sure. Right? And I'm giving them their choice, what they want to do.
Right. And of course, that's what everybody should have, is their own choice. Yeah. And how many, we've got 35 licensed producers now, right?
Yeah, 35, 36 producers. Actually, I had a guy, someone who I was talking to one day, and they had mentioned they were mad at Trudeau and said that Trudeau was going to hand it all over to his friends under legalization. And I said, well, what do you think the MMPR was? What did Harper do? He took away our rights to grow and handed it all over to the corporations.
Right. And that was the ultimate start of it. It really had nothing to do with Trudeau, handing it over to his friends. And I'm not disputing the fact that legalization regulations taking. Yeah.
Well, we don't know what the final end's going to be, but people do have to speak up well before the final comes out to know what we're going to end up with.
Absolutely. Well, that's what the National Task Force, we were involved with that with, CTCP and, MOM and Haley's Foundation, as we got that document through to the people that were working on the ACMPR within Health Canada. So, but again, like, I don't know if you're hearing about the capping of the 3 to 5 grams that, doctors have been getting letters, only giving, supposedly 5 grams at a cap top. And I'm like, really? Like, that's just trying to keep plant counts down in reality, because it's one gram gram per 5.
Yeah, I've heard of people get some numbers a little bit higher. I don't doubt, as with in the past with the MMAR program, that the government will be phoning doctors for some of the numbers. Yeah,
they did in the past. That's not something new.
Yeah, and that's something that does Health Canada phone Dr. Johnny because he prescribed a little bit higher dose of an opiate drug to a patient?
Yeah. Well, yeah. You have to wonder about the triple scripts. Like, you know what I mean? You have to sign a 3-page triple script to get 30 Percocets, right?
Yeah.
And that has to be every 30 days or whatever. So,
well, see, I don't really know. I haven't had any.
I don't either. Like,
I haven't prescribed.
Yeah, no, me as well. Like, I haven't had a pharmaceutical prescription in. Oh, good grief. At least, since I got my license in 2010, I absolutely have not taken anything. And that's because I can't. Like, it's the same as you. I'm sure, I don't know what prednisone and, Alsacol and all the lovely things.
Like, the steroids, man. Holy smokes.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that patients do find, that steroids, one of the first things when you've got anything IBS, Crohn's, colitis, diverticulosis, related inflammation, arthritis, they all want to give you steroids. They want to give you or high levels of aspirin that's going to thin your blood. And like, hello.
Yeah. I was on 32 pills a day, plus doing a weekly injection in my stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going in every 6 weeks for a IV drug that I had to sit in a chair for 3 hours a day, 3 hours, and the stuff would drip into me. They would give you get pills for one pill for just something else, because you would get a side effect from one pill. So they would give you another pill to counteract this one. And when I ended up, I'm no longer having to do those injections. My pill count is actually, to tell you the truth, I'm not taking any pills now for my Crohn's. My treatments, my Crohn's treatments were shut down a year and a half ago. That was due to I ended up getting skin cancer.
Oh wow! Well, it's I quit. Back to the cancer. I quit smoking last week.
Correct. Yes, I see that. Congratulations.
Day 6 of, I'm not going to say I haven't had a cigarette. I have had one cigarette over the last couple of days. So I'm not going to, lie or anything. I have had one cigarette, but I mean, overall for 6 days, I took the patches off. But in reality, it's just, what do you do to kind of counter effect the side effect of that? And every time I quit smoking, my colitis goes into full flare.
It does,
Every time. So again, I'm fighting that plus, pains in my legs because I've taken the nicotine out. And I don't want to bring the nicotine back in to, counteract these flares that I'm having. So I'm looking for other alternatives right now to.
Well, I've seen some of the posts on your Facebook wall, and I see some people have suggested the vape pens with a little bit of nicotine in them to.
Well, I've got one of those as well, but I really find that it doesn't. I don't know. It leaks, and you get this gross hands, and it smells like nicotine.
It's gross.
Yeah, I've been trying to go cold turkey. The patch kept falling off. And I'm not a really heavy smoker, so I'm.
Yeah, it's a very hard thing. It's a very hard thing to do. Nicotine, which is legal. Can be bought in corner stores, is a very addictive drug.
Well, like I said, I counteracted to coming off dope. Like the same kind of that was my mindset when I quit smoking. I was like, okay, you've done this once before, like years ago, with an illegal substance. You can do this again. It's with a legal substance, right? And that's the mindset that I had. It's like, okay, you're coming off dope, and in hindsight, it is. They say it's equivalent to heroin. So when you're talking about it, and smoke more cannabis.
Yeah.
I could afford to smoke the cannabis I could eat to get off this stuff.
Yeah, well, you got to go through that battle. The withdrawals. And you will, and cannabis can be there to help you with that as well.
And I think that's one thing we need to push forward too, with safe injection sites and a lot of people that are using and different advocations for using cannabis for harm reduction, because I think that over the years I've found that a lot of people can stay away from the substance that they were had the monkey on their back by using cannabis, and a lot of people It's well, you're just taking one addiction to another. Cannabis has got a different effect than anything I've ever had in my life.
Well, let's put it this way. I think we both agree we'd rather see North America having a cannabis addiction versus an opiate one right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, well, we're going to lead into another commercial. I'm going to thank another one of my sponsors, which is the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Association, or Society, sorry, and Mom Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, as well as 12 High Chicks Magazine and BC Sensible.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
This is Bubbles from the trailer park, and they're playing some fucking excellent music on lifestyleradio.ca. I hope I didn't sound too nervous there.
You hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
One in, yeah. One in. We don't stop in yarn. Fancy rock and ranking, bliss it till morning. Do it, John. I real herbalist about ya.
Yeah, me love me marijuana. Sensamina fibon. Sensamina fibon. Because me love me sesame. Sensamina fibon. Sensamina fibon. Me love me marijuana fibon. Marijuana fibon. Love me marijuana. Marijuana fibon. Marijuana fibon.
Yeah, me sit down and me roll it in a wrist lap on me lap. Baby, baby, smoke make your eye them job. Place me a place, and you know me not go stop. You ganja man, and me not take no gap. You're dealing with the herbalist. You're the real specialist who have no ganja na in palace. Don't reach out back, sensitive where you give me a shot.
Yeah, me love me marijuana. Sensamina fibon. Sensamina fibon. Because me love me sesame. Sensamina fibon. Sensamina fibon. Me love me marijuana fibon. Marijuana fibon. Love me marijuana. Marijuana fibon. Marijuana fibon. And it's the healing, not the nation, not what people might say. Ganja in the morning, smoking ganja all day. Some drink, some stress, but me not roll that way.
I strictly sense me love it, no deal with no play.
When me burn up me spliff, it make my eye turn red. Yeah, me feel alright, me shake me red. I do it over coke, and that me promote. As some me tell a youth, well me not the panjo. Yeah, me love me marijuana. Sensamina fibon. Because me love me sesame. Sensamina fibon. Sensamina fibon. Me love me marijuana fibon. Marijuana fibon. Love me marijuana. Marijuana fibon. It a fibon, a fibon.
Yes, baby, light up me chalice, yes, me feel alright.
Lift up me meditation, reaching a higher heights.
Me nah understand why marijuana them a fight.
The healing of the nation, right? Chop, Patsy, give me the weeds. Make me roll a spliff where fat like a bima.
Then see a fee easy, no man that want the super flower.
Ganja every day, come me blessed with the power.
Me higher than the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, me marijuana. Sensamina fibon. Sensamina fibon. Because me love me sesame. Sensamina fibon. Sensamina fibon. fi burn. Fentanyl fi burn. Marijuana fi burn. Marijuana fi burn. Marijuana fi burn. Marijuana fi burn.
And a little bit of reggae going on this week. Thanks, Al, for all your great music picks. I really enjoy. I was just handing that off to you because, yeah. So I want to thank for Al Rapp, yes, for his great music choices this week and last week and the week before, because he does a great job at helping produce this show. So we were back to talking about the grassroots, kind of passing out the education to the patients, and that's where we really need to, why we educate ourselves, because we're dealing with people that, like you said, we don't know. Yeah. When you're at your booth, they're coming up and they're saying,
yeah, they don't. And being able to give somebody, whether it's we hand out brochures, as I mentioned, I got the small little grassroots advocate magazine that we hand out. It gives them something, and we give it to them for free. We don't charge anybody for anything, because people will take stuff that's free. When you start charging even 50 cents or $1 for something like that, people will, some people just say no, so I don't have any money on me, or they just don't want to bother. So we give away everything free, and it's just getting that knowledge out, with TY, with the shows. I don't know whether you realize this, Tamara, or not. But for 2 years, I was involved with a local radio station on terrestrial radio, and spent time anywhere from 1.5 minutes to 5 minutes talking about cannabis news and educating people just over a local radio station.
And that's awesome. And that's, I think, like you said, where we, have to hit as the mainstream and do it where how many people have walked up to you and say, well, you don't look like a pot consumer. And you have to, what does a pot consumer look like?
What's it look like? What's my look? And that I've had that happen myself. And I do that myself. I mean, you don't even look like you don't look like you consume cannabis. But I'm sure you're the same thing. You find that when you're out front and you are vocal, people will approach you. And they will say things like that. But they also say, hey, I need a hand. I need some help.
Well, that's the thing too, and there's so many people that are interested and curious these days, and I think you can thank the CBC, I think, a lot for that too, because it seems like as far as mainstream media goes, CBC has picked up a lot of everything that we the cannabis communities have been doing the last 5 years, where politics, Debbie, Schultz Giffen and John Conroy, they've all been on after the Allard case with on Power and Politics and all that kind of
it was
dream, right?
Yeah, it was great to see them on there. But then you see the announcement yesterday by the PBO about what legalization can bring money-wise into the government.
Right.
And the CBC article, the picture they used was a guy dressed up, whether he was dressed up as a hippie or he was just a hippie. I love hippies and everything.
But the
great big stogie in his mouth. Yeah. And
we always go for that. They always go for the worst picture. It's like a 420 or a global marijuana march. Or like a teenage big bong sitting on the front steps of the Vancouver, right. They're always looking for the worst stigmatization of something that's so in basic. It's hard. It's not. I wouldn't say. I'm not going to go as far as harmless, because smoking on all levels might not be as great for everybody as they say it is. But it's harmless. People don't get stoned and go beat up and rob places.
By reusing the same photos, which CBDC did use before, and it doesn't help in the stigmatization that so many of us are trying to fight and move against.
We'll change that.
To remove exactly.
Change the whole.
We got more work ahead.
I think we do. I think we've come a long ways with the help of advocates like you. Like I said, being out in Ontario those few times that I've been out there, just seeing the different outlay of the land and how comfortable, and even being in BC now comparably to Alberta. But Alberta is really opening up now. So
yes, well, I mean, seeing like when we had the fellow on who was involved in the Calgary Expo, the Cannabis Hemp Expo, and you said they're having another one in Edmonton.
Right.
Those are big things. Just like when TY had their expo in 2010. It was something that really because there was press from all around the world that was there. I talked to people from Italy, Greece, down in the States, people that were coming up here.
Epic.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's too bad the expo died, and there's the Lift Expo, which is, I would say, is different. It most definitely is different than the TY Expo was. But this year, the Karma Cup, this was the first year that they had the festival end of it all with the vendors, and I had seen some comments online that Sarah was trying to make it like a little mini TY, which I would say it was.
And that's good. It's a huge feat. Like, Marco really did pull off some, fabulous expos. Like, I was there 2 years, and it really was. It was something that, like an ag expo or something mainstream, but it was all cannabis related business.
And
he really had industry.
He had that all set up, away from that stoner image. He had the Global Marijuana Music Awards. He had speakers such as Dr. Robert Melamy, who was a guest on Al's show last Friday. Dr. William Courtney, he was there. We got to meet musicians. We got to meet the comedians. They just had people from everywhere coming to that spot, and it just made the cannabis community worldwide was together.
Absolutely. And it's, Canadian cannabis community really has forefronted, I'm not giving any dispute to the, our American friends down south, but, our Canadian cannabis community is pretty unique.
This did have the community from worldwide, right? Because we had people from Europe there. The guys, there was, people come up from the U.S., especially that first year. And then, he made adjustments over the years and brought things all up on one floor and had the music up there and the speakers up there. And, I was helping out in behind the scenes with the volunteers. And, for me to be involved in that and to be behind the scenes, I enjoyed. It was something that I never expected that I would be involved in, something I would do. There was one year where I was involved in doing some of the judging, like the breeders judging, involved with calculating totals, sort of office work, I guess you could sort of call it. And it was an opportunity that I thought I would never have. And it was something that I enjoyed, and, maybe I'll never do it again, but I did it. And
forever though, right? Like those.
Pardon me?
Memories that you will cherish forever.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same as, we mentioned Michelle was there in 2010, before she, at the end of the expo when everybody was leaving, she came up and said goodbye. She didn't know what was going to happen at that time, exactly, but, yet again, it's one of those memories that I'll never forget.
Yeah, cherished memories that, like I said, there's so many of them that kind of keeps us all connected from coast to coast. And I think that's one thing that our community does do. And, we, like I said, there's bickering and fighting and drama and all kinds of stuff that goes along with every community that's out there. But in, hindsight, when it comes to an event, we can all put our differences aside and all meet in one area and at least not have, a shit show, well, sometimes there are shit shows. They're usually kept pretty, off to the side. So it's good that we can come together and meet and have events like Karma Cup and Prairie Harvest Cup that just, was in the past too, that Jeff put together. That was another huge, a successful event, that I've been to as well in a couple of years. And with the Mom Cup that's going to be coming up here now in February, that 12 High Chicks is putting on, which is February 24th to 25th, 26th, I think she has put up there. That announced yesterday, I think. So that's something that we can all look forward to too. If you can get to Vancouver, that one's going to be in Vancouver. So
hey, I'd love to come to Vancouver or go to Vancouver.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah. I'm a patient though, and limited incomes, right?
I know, exactly, and that's exactly what I was blessed to be able to go to Toronto those a couple times that I was able to go. It was because other patients and people came together to help me get to where I had to go, right? So there's always opportunities to get people where they have to go within this community. So
yes, there is, and I'm gonna sort of throw a bit of a curve at you here. When you're educating people, I talk to everybody, and I don't label them or anything like that. And I had an opportunity a few years ago to get involved with a naturist ranch, which would be a nudist place. And I can tell you, for 3 summers now, I've done educational documentaries or educational stuff there on cannabis, and everybody's there. You wouldn't think of these as the people there as cannabis consumers. They're just that's that look thing again, right? And to be able to talk to them, and it's because they're not the people that they're not involved in the cannabis community whatsoever, and it's just whether you're naked or clothed, it's all education.
Well, I think that a lot of just because not everybody that's cannabis wants to be involved in the cannabis community either. Like
correct.
Just because you're not involved in the cannabis community doesn't mean that you can't be educated on all levels when it comes to so many different beneficial things, like whether it's relaxation, whether it's whether you don't do whether you're medical and you need full spectrum cannabinoid therapy. Like there's so many different spectrums of the cannabis plant. That's one.
I had some people my last time I did a documentary at this place, and they it was just sort of people, it was sort of cannabis. They just thought they're going to learn a little bit about marijuana, and what I did is I put a series of short little clips together of children dealing with autism, cancer, epilepsy, things like that. And once I did that, I got in trouble because people thought I was trying to get them to cry, because it does make people cry, and it makes people realize that, hey, this really is a medication, and then they end up staying and wanting to learn some more and ask more questions. And it's when you can convert somebody. Like I had a guy one time that was telling me that because of cannabis, it was the reason that there was trouble going on in a local park. That fellow's now passed on, unfortunately. He passed on from cancer. But before he passed on, he came to me and talked to me about cannabis for his cancer. And I was able over time to convert him. And when you can do that, convert people or help somebody, hey, it can make you sort of the Grinch there. You see his heart grow, because it makes you feel so good. So.
Well, that's exactly, I think, why a lot of us got going in this is because we had our own stories, right?
Yeah.
And how we were connected to somebody else because their story was similar to ours, and then paid it forward because somebody helped you get to the doctor. So then help that the next person get to the doctor, and the next person. That person tells somebody else, and they tell 4 more people. That's exactly. Yeah, so it just kind of like blossomed into the you help pay forward kind of thing, and hopefully that's how it continues going. But it seems like a lot of industry has stepped in, which is fine. Like I said, ultimately we knew that was going to happen 5 years.
That was going to happen, yeah.
Right, yeah. The doors were going to open for the industry to open, and in hindsight, that gives patients better access. And I guess that's what bottom line boils down to, is that all we ever wanted for everybody was dignified access, right? Yeah. We wanted everybody to be able to have the option to grow their own, buy wherever they wanted, get whatever they needed for their specific need, whether it was, recreational or medical or whatever. We just wanted dignified access for everybody. So I guess we're getting there.
Yeah, and at the end of this month, the task force, the National Task Force on Cannabis, will be making their submissions to the government. And we'll hopefully, find out something sooner than later. But unfortunately, I think it'll probably be the spring before we do, to give us a better idea where they may be going.
And that would be, I think, beneficial for everybody, is that once we absolutely know where the government's heading with this, we might be able to see some sort of relaxation for the whole community, where we can all just back and say, okay, or we're going to be like totally like, fuck you, we're not dealing with this.
Yeah, well, there's
warrior calls again, right? So
there was the BC Liberal Resolution 117 that was voted at the Liberal Convention in Ottawa years ago. Within that, it states that they realize that they can't and they won't eliminate home growing. So I'm hoping that they adopt that at the federal level when it all comes, it's all said and done.
Oh, I think we all have the right to, like tomatoes. That's where I'm at. I've always kind of been in that, aspect of things where it's like a tomato, the harm reduction sense of it, just, keeping people away from anything. Like I said, when they say there's toxins, it's like, it's not a meth lab.
No. Well,
I have a cannabis plant sitting right next to my Dieffenbachia, and the Dieffenbachia is more harmful to my pet than the cannabis plant is.
Or,
you know what I'm saying?
The seeds off a trumpet flower or morning glory.
Well, exactly. Like I said, there's other plants that are more toxic than the cannabis plants. So, yeah. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you...
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with. I'm hoping that they allow the craft cannabis to be involved in it and the patients to grow. We have a microbrewery here in my town, and he also has a pub here as well. But I don't see why somebody couldn't set up a micro grow where they have specialty cannabis and gives people, yet again, another option.
Yeah, we talked about that last week with Teresa with the craft cannabis industry and how microbrewing, but it took them so many years from prohibition through to get to brewing, right? Like prohibition ended in the 30s, and then it took them till 1982 to actually get through to microbrewing done, right?
Well,
so
let's hope.
Yeah.
Let's hope with the cannabis, with the alcohol model being there for the craft alcohol model being there, that maybe something along the same line, not gonna say exactly or whatever, but something along the same line could be done for the cannabis end, because
I'd like to see little windows and like little restaurants and stuff that are all set up like in the same type of form where you can infuse cannabis into olive oils and grapeseed oils. You can use all that stuff.
Well, a vapor lounge could be a retail outlet, just like a bar is for alcohol. A lounge has cannabis.
Absolutely. Well, and that's hey, I have all kinds of visions, all kinds of
Don't we all?
Visions. Yes, I think in hindsight we'd all like to see it just be as mainstream as a restaurant or a bar or vapor lounge would be, just like going, you go out and have a drink. Well, you go out and you can consume, go up to a bar and say, okay, well, I want to, one of the, like an Amsterdam cafe, and I think in hindsight, I think that's how I'd like to see it, and a lot of us would like to see it. So it's off, to do recreationally, medically, whatever you like, whatever everybody should have, because like I said before, it's all about access, right?
Access.
And I guess we're at the end of our time, my dear. So
okay, it just flew by.
Yeah, it sure does. Well, it's always nice talking to you. We always have plenty to talk about, and I'd like to shout out to you for your Peace Radio show, which is on tonight, right?
Yes. Yep, it's here on lifestyleradio.ca. We go 8 p.m. We're live, and we are with Sean Drew tonight. Kim met him at the Karma Cup. He is about cannabis and canvas. Excellent photography, and I'm sure there might be some artwork involved in there. We saw it there, like I said, at the Cup, and Kim's having him on tonight. It's great stuff. And tune in, 8 o'clock. We're there for 90 minutes.
Awesome. So that's 8 o'clock Eastern time, which is 6 o'clock Mountain time. So 6 o'clock our time if you're listening locally in Cranbrook. And that's Al and Kim
5.
Cooper.
Yep, Kim will be. Kim is my joint host tonight, and as usual, she's
Awesome.
found a guest.
Right, great. So I would like to thank Al for coming on from Pace, and I'd like to also thank sponsors: Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society, MUM, 12 High Chicks Magazine, Remo's Nutrients, MJ Creams, BC Sensible, B&M Hydroponics. There's so many that I would like to, we should all get your clips into me so I don't have to keep saying this.
Hey, I can help you out with that,
And that's a wrap. Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next week with another guest at 9 a.m. with Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarijuana. You have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarijuana.
Tune into the Pace Radio Show and catch Kim Cooper, Debbie Stoll-Skiffen, or Allison Murden, along with myself, Al Grant, as we talk to Canadian and international cannabis advocates who are working hard to help patients and to end cannabis prohibition. Catch us live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here at lifestyleradio.ca.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions